Okay, we've got 3 problems in this video. The other 2 are on the next slides, so you're only seeing 36, but the other 37 and 38 are coming. Now, are solving for x, so we need to just essentially look at what's happening to x and undo it. Okay, so right now we see that x is being multiplied by b, and then also z is being added to it. And since we're undoing order of operations in the reverse order, we need to undo this plus z before we do anything before we deal with this times b. So what do? We are going to, and I'm going to consider this to be the original equation written. So I'm just going to start with the next line where I say, I'm going to subtract z from both sides. We say z minus m, what's already there, minus z equals z plus bx minus z. And what you'll notice is that this has got a z and then minus z, those go away. This is a z and then a minus z, those go away as well. So the z's disappear completely from this. But notice also that this is minus m, so we've still got a negative attached to the m. Negative m equals, and since the z and the negative z cancel out, we've got b times x. Now what's happening to x? It is being multiplied by b. The inverse operation is divided by b. So we've got negative m divided by b equals b times x divided by b. And then that leaves us with x equals negative m divided by b. And we'll box that. And of course, you could do a proof on this. Let's see how I doing a proof for you on this. Okay. We start out with the original equation. Z minus m equals z plus bx. And of course, we're substituting x for with negative m over b. So we say z minus m equals z plus b parentheses negative m over b. And you can see that this b times b and this divided by b cancel out. Okay, and all you're left with is then the negative m. So we've got z minus m equals z plus negative m. And essentially that's just z minus m as well. So you've got then z minus m equals z minus m. We've got the same on both sides, and we say check. That's what we want in a proof, is that we get the same resultant on both sides. Let's do the next. Okay, so this one says, what is the radius of a circle with a circumference of 10 inches? They're looking for the radius, so I'm going to isolate the r value first before I plug anything in. Okay, so I'm going to say, what's happening to r right now is being multiplied by 2 pi, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2 pi. So I'm going to say c divided by 2 pi equals 2 pi r divided by 2 pi. And what results is then c over 2 pi equals r. Now that we've got that, they say what's the radius, and the circumference is 10, and we're going to use 3.14 for pi. So we will say then 10 for the circumference, and 2 times 3.14. Yeah. And what do we get? Well, we're going to get then, I'm going to move to the top here, we're going to get 10 divided by 2 times 3.14 is 6.28 equals r. And if we calculate this, let's do it. We can say, and this is a little bit tricky because what we're saying here, I'll do this math down here, where you're saying 10 divided by 6.28 put a 0. How many times does, and actually, you know what I'm going to do here? This is a trick that you're allowed to do, which is we can say we want this to be a whole number, so we're going to move it over 2 places, and we need to move this over 2 places as well. So in order to move it a second place, we need to put a second 0. And now, when we move it over 2 places to be there, move this one over 2 places to be there, we get the equivalent division problem of, I'm going to write it above it, 628 into 1,000. And then we will get the exact same answer as we would with the original numbers. And so I'm just going to erase that and say, okay, now let's calculate it. How many times does 628 go into 1,000? It goes in once. Subtract away 628. This is 10, becomes a 9, so that can become a 10. And that 10 becomes a 9, so that can become a 10. And now we have 10 minus 8 is 2. 9 minus 2 is 7, and 9 minus 6 is 3. So now we annex a 0 and bring it down. How many times does 6 go into 628 go into 3720? Well, this is how I'm estimating it here in my mind. I'm saying this 6 is going to go into this roughly 36 6 times. Okay, so I'm going to do a little multiplication over here and see if I can actually do it 6 times. 628 times 6. It's 12 is 16. Carry the 1s. 36, 37. 33768. Nope, I don't have that much. So I'm going to have to go 5 times. That would put me over the top, so I have to go 5 times. So I'm going to say, okay, let's say if it was 5 times, what would we get? It's 40. Carry the 4. 5 times 2 is 10. 14. Carry the 1. 5 times 6 is 30. 31. Let's say 1.5. We get these out of there. Okay. 5 times is 3140. So we subtract, we say 0, borrow from here, that's a 6, and that's 12. 8, 5, annex another 0. Now, you might say, well, how far do we have to go, Mr. Massey? How far do we have to calculate this out? Well, they're asking us to calculate it to the nearest tenth, which means that we need to go one more decimal place to see whether this stays at 1.5 or it rounds up to 1.6. So we need to know what that digit is next to it for rounding purposes. So how many times does 628 go into 5,800? Well, I'm going to do what I did before and just say, okay, this is about 600, and this is about, well, it's almost actually 6,000. So that would be 10 times. So I'm going to guess conservatively 8 times. Because I think if I did 9, I might go over it. Actually, I'll try 9. Why not? 628 times 9. 72. Carry the 7. So it was 18. 25. Carry the 2. 9 times 6 is 54. Plus 2 is 56. Oh, good. That worked. Okay, so I can say it's a 9. And that is 5652. And there's going to be something left over, but really what I found is this. It is about 1.59 something. And we already know that to the nearest tenth, that 5 is going to round up to a 6 because this is more than half of another tenth. Okay, so that's approximately 1.6. So I'm going to just erase all of this. And say that the radius is approximately equal to 1.6 inches. And let me make that a little smaller because it's a little obnoxiously big. The radius is approximately equal to 1.6 inches. Okay? You should know how to do this kind of division, but we'll see whether we'll see whether you'll have to have super complicated numbers on this. But anyway, that's how you do it. One more. Okay, what's the height of the triangle that has an area of 60 and a base length of 12, 60 yards squared? So we're looking for the height, so I'm going to isolate for the h variable first. So I'm going to say, okay, if I need to undo this 1/2, anytime I'm undoing a fraction, I multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply the reciprocal by the reciprocal of 1/2, which is 2. I'm going to say 2 parentheses a equals 2 parentheses 1/2 base times height. Now, if you're not used to multiplying both sides in this manner, put the multiplier out front, everything that was already on that side in the parentheses, multiplier out front, everything on that side in parentheses. If you're not doing that, you are going to run into problems because I've been saying this over and over. That's how you should be doing this. Okay, so we've got 2a equals. That 2 undoes that 1/2, and we've got base times height. And now we say we're isolating h because they're asking for the height. What is the height? What is h? So we need to isolate h. What's happening to h is being multiplied by b. The inverse operation is divide by b. So we say 2a divided by b equals base times height divided by b. And then we get h equaling 2a over b. Because that's now what we're going to use to solve this because we've isolated for the thing we're looking for. I'm going to start on the right-hand side here, pick a different color, and say now we've got 2 times a all over b is what h is. And now I can say 2 times, what did they say for the area? They said for the area, oh, and I'm going to show you something neat about units. They told us for the area that it is 60 yards squared. Over the base, which is 12 yards. Okay. Now here's the thing that I was getting at. This right here, this right here is yards times yards, yards squared, and this is dividing one of the yards away. So the units will cancel here. This will cancel out, and this will cancel out basically one of the two to leave you just with yards. So you can see how you end up resulting in the unit's yards. Okay, so we can cancel out here, and in fact, I will show you that. First, I'm going to multiply. I'm going to just show you if you just multiplied and you had h, you would get 2 times 60 is 120. There's yards over 12. And if you are able to do this math in your head, you can see that 120 divided by 12 is going to be 10. So we've got 10 yards as your answer. And I will box that. That's our answer. But we can also cancel in parts. While we're up here, we can say this 2 and this 12 cancels out, leaving us with a 1 here and a 6 here. We divided them both by 2. Okay, and then I'll do this one in a different color further. We can divide this 60 and this 6 both by 6. And what we are left with here is 10 here and a 1 here. And you still result in actually 10 yards then, because watch what I get here. I've got 10 there. Oops. And yards there. So 1 times 10 is 10, times yards, 10 yards. And 1 on the bottom, we don't need to put it over 1 if it's just it. Okay? That's how you do it.